beneath the calm, rolling hills of the Yorkshire Dales, behind the stoic, weathered stone walls of Ravenseat Farm, beyond the picturesque charm that graced millions of television screens across Britain, lurks a truth that was never aired. This is not just pastoral fairy tale wrapped in sheep's wool and golden morning light. This is the untold story of Amanda Owen, the woman the world came to know as the Yorkshire Shepherdess. A mother of 9. But at the age of 50, everything changed. Her marriage to Clive Owen, her partner of over 2 decades, ended. Her hit TV show, Our Yorkshire Farm, shuttered. In its place, a new program, a new premise, and a very different Amanda. A woman reeling, reinventing, and finally revealing what was never allowed to be shown. Beneath every stone wall lies a crack. Behind every smiling face, a shadow. And sometimes, even the strongest shepherdess can be led astray, not by the land, but by the weight of a life lived for everyone else. The world thought it knew Amanda Owen. But this is the story of what really happened behind those hills. The hidden truths, the unspoken battles, and the long road back to herself.
To the public, Amanda and Clive Owen were the embodiment of a rural fairy tale. 2 shepherds, united by grit and love, raising 9 free-spirited children among crags, rivers, and ancient farmland. They made it look effortless. The feeding of flocks, the managing of chaos, the unity of a family living beyond the trappings of modern life. But the cameras never caught everything. And slowly, what appeared to be a life carved in harmony began to fracture under the weight of exposure. Long filming hours stretched from days to weeks. Production teams became fixtures in their home. Scripts disguised as interviews. "Do it again, but with more emotion," producers whispered. And Amanda, once spontaneous and raw, found herself rehearsing moments that used to be real. The once invisible line between life and performance began to blur. While Amanda's star rose, book deals, speaking engagements, television appearances, Clive remained tied to the rhythms of Ravenseat. His contentment came not from fame, but from the land itself. The fields, the sheep, the solitude. Behind the walls of their stone cottage, the distance between them widened. Amanda began writing more, pages and pages of personal reflection. She kept journals hidden under her mattress. Her talks grew colder, her eyes more distant. Clive, ever the quiet observer, grew silent. Neighbors noticed. So did the crew. One producer recalled, "We used to capture laughs and light-hearted bickering. But toward the end, we were editing out silence. A lot of silence." Even their children felt the shift. In one behind-the-scenes clip, never aired, young 𝐀𝐦𝐚 asked Amanda, "Why don't you look at Dad when you talk anymore?" The answer was never given, but it was written across every barn door, every breakfast not shared, every sheep tended alone. The cracks in the stone walls weren't just metaphors. They were memories, splitting, shifting, fading. And with each quiet moment, Amanda drifted further from the life that once defined her.
It didn't begin with a shouting match. It wasn't a breaking dish or a slammed door. No one would have heard it, except maybe the wind that night. Because when the moment came, it came in silence. The night everything changed began with rain. Relentless, rhythmic Yorkshire rain, beating down on Ravenseat's slate roof. The kind of rain that makes you question everything. Your plans, your purpose, your place in the world. Amanda sat alone at the kitchen table, long after the crew had gone and the children were asleep. A half-empty mug of tea had gone cold beside her. Her journal was open. And in it, words she never intended anyone else to read. She reread a page from the week before. "I feel like I'm playing someone else now. I smile for the cameras. I cook for the show. But when it's quiet, I don't know who I am." In that moment, something inside her broke. Not loudly, not violently, but with the ache of a truth finally accepted. She stood up, walked to the back door, and stared out into the rain. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She simply knew. This life, this version of her life, wasn't hers anymore. The next morning, Amanda told Clive she wanted to separate. No threats. No blame. Just the hollow honesty of two people who had reached the end of their shared story. The news stunned the production team. Fans flooded social media with disbelief. And while the tabloids speculated about scandal, Amanda issued just one statement. It wasn't about anger. It was about authenticity. I needed to stop living the life everyone else expected of me. Behind every fairy tale, there is a cost. And that night, Amanda Owen paid it in full. But this wasn't Ravenseat. And this wasn't the same story. The first thing viewers noticed, Clive was gone. Absent from both screen and credits. As were most of the children. Instead, Amanda stood alone. Or rather, stood surrounded by drones, camera crews, stylists, and a newly polished production team. The set was staged. The dialogue tighter. The farm, though real, felt curated. Insiders whispered of storyboards. Of reshoots. Of producers pushing narratives. Amanda, once so organic, so wild and rooted in reality, now looked cornered. A crew member admitted anonymously, she didn't want to do certain scenes. They told her to be vulnerable, but only in the ways that looked good in trailers. Amanda's own words from a later interview echo louder. The cameras were still rolling, but I wasn't sure who I was playing anymore. Fans, too, felt the shift. Comments flooded social platforms. Where's the authenticity? This isn't Amanda. This is a version of her. Amanda's social media presence dimmed. Fewer posts. No behind-the-scenes laughter. No muddy boot selfies. This wasn't just a new show. It was a new Amanda, whether by choice, force, or fatigue. And in every episode, beneath the beautiful edits and sweeping Yorkshire views, there was an undertone of loss. Loss of spontaneity. Of freedom. Of the woman viewers had come to love not because she was perfect, but because she was real.
It didn't happen during a storm. It didn't take a tabloid headline to push her over the edge. It was a simple day. A day like many before it. The crew was filming a routine scene. Amanda tending to her sheep near the old boundary wall of Auntie John's farm. She smiled on cue. She lifted a lamb. She spoke to camera. Then she stopped. No warning. No error. She simply froze. The camera continued rolling for 10 seconds. 20. Then the director whispered, "Cut." Amanda turned. Walked away. No words. She entered the barn. And didn't come out for over an hour. Phones buzzed. Assistants debated knocking. Producers whispered worst-case scenarios. One crew member described it later. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Like the soul had just left. When Amanda finally emerged, she didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She simply said, "I'm ready." But the performance that followed? It was different. Her voice was softer. Her eyes haunted. She moved through the rest of the day with robotic precision, smiling when told, pausing when directed. Later that evening, as the sun dipped over the hills, Amanda posted a rare caption photo. "The hardest days are the ones you don't prepare for." Fans reacted with concern. But the truth? That post wasn't for them. It was for herself. A reminder that even the strongest shepherdess can break. And when she does, it doesn't make her weaker. It makes her real.
Ravenseat still stands. The wind still sweeps across its rugged moors. The sheep still graze. The river swale still hums its eternal melody past the footbridge Amanda once crossed 100 times a day. Baby in one arm, bucket in the other. But the rhythms of this land have changed. There are fewer cameras now. Fewer boots trudging through the muck with expensive lenses. No production vans idling at the gate. No drones circling the hills to capture the perfect golden hour. Amanda Owen has stepped back, not just from television, but from everything that turned her quiet life into a national spectacle. These days, Her mornings begin before dawn, as always. But now, there's no call sheet. No makeup artist. No waiting for light direction. She walks the fields alone, breathing in the silence like medicine. One neighbor, who's lived in the Dales for 40 years, put it best. She's returned to the earth. That's the Amanda I remember. Her children, older now, have adapted in their own ways. Reuben spends more time on his mechanical projects, rebuilding tractors, tinkering in the barn until late into the night. Raven, now pursuing higher studies, visits with a new gentleness in her eyes. The younger ones? They still chase chickens, still tumble down hillsides, but there's a difference. They laugh more freely now. Not for the camera, but for themselves. And Amanda? She's begun writing again, but not memoirs. Not publishers' contracts. Just pages in a leather-bound notebook. Poetry. Observations. Questions she's still finding the courage to answer. In one passage, she wrote, "There's freedom in the quiet. In no longer performing resilience, but actually living it." She's rebuilt Auntie John's farmhouse, not with fanfare, but with patience. The walls stand straighter now. The roof no longer leaks. But it's not just the stone that's been restored. It's Amanda. She still tends to animals. Still fights with faulty gates and misbehaving weather. But her pace has changed. Her gaze is less frantic. Her voice, when she speaks at the local market or in town, is softer, less performative. More Amanda. Visitors still arrive at Ravenseat. Fans, wanderers, seekers of something simple. Sometimes she offers tea. Other times, she asks for space. Because this time, she's setting the boundaries. This chapter. It's hers. No scripts. No edits. No pressure to smile. She plants more flowers now. Not for aesthetics, but because they make her daughters happy. She cooks not for camera-ready kitchens, but because feeding people is how she shows love. And when asked if she'll ever return to TV, Amanda's answer remains the same. Not all stories need a camera. This land has always demanded resilience. But what Amanda Owen has learned more than anything is that strength is not in staying silent. It's in speaking when you're ready. In choosing yourself. In living, even after the curtain falls. She once told an interviewer, "The Dales have taught me that even after the hardest winters, something always blooms." This is Amanda Owen's spring. And Ravenseat, for all its storms and scars, is still home.
She went on long walks with no destination, took up sketching, stopped checking her phone obsessively. Sometimes she'd cry in the lambing shed with no one there to capture it. Other times, she'd laugh at a crooked fence post like it told the best joke she'd heard in years. Freedom, she realized, wasn't just about distance from cameras. It was about rediscovering herself. And in that rediscovery, Amanda began doing something she hadn't done in years. She said no. No to publishers who wanted to tell all. No to journalists who promised a safe space. No to network offers for redemption reality TV. She even said no to a popular morning show when they asked if she could appear via satellite. Her reply? "I'm busy pulling calves. If they want to talk, they can come help." Amanda had learned something most public figures never do. The most powerful thing you can say, after years of saying everything they wanted, is nothing at all. The cameras stopped. The headlines faded. The tweets slowed to a trickle. For the first time in nearly a decade, Amanda Owen woke up to a world that wasn't watching. And at first it was terrifying. After years of living on television screens across the country, her life edited, broadcast, and dissected, Amanda was finally left alone. No crew, no schedules, just the silence of the Dales. It wasn't the kind of silence that soothes. It was the kind that echoes. She'd grown used to eyes on her, used to direction, to expectations, to applause and backlash in equal measure. But now it was just her. And the question that haunted her more than any other was simple. Who am I without the camera? For weeks, she struggled with the stillness. One of her children described it this way. Mum was like a sheepdog without a flock. She'd wander around the house in circles, starting 10 things but finishing none. The farmhouse, now quiet, seemed to breathe differently. There were no boom mics, no producers, no sound techs creeping behind hedges. Just wind, just sheep, just Amanda. And slowly, she began to exhale.
But silence doesn't mean emptiness. Amanda filled her days with small joys. Preserving jam, organizing old photographs, writing letters to friends she hadn't seen since childhood. She began teaching her children to bake bread from scratch. Not because a producer asked for a wholesome moment, but because they were hungry, and it mattered. And at night, when the wind howled and the house creaked and the stars blazed above her roof, Amanda would sit by the fire, close her eyes, and feel something she hadn't felt in years. Enough. This wasn't retirement. It was rebirth. Amanda Owen, the brand, had stepped aside. Amanda Owen, the woman, was finally home. There would still be hard days, frozen pipes, sick lambs, broken windows. But she faced them now not as a character or an image or a myth. She faced them as herself. No longer a shepherdess for the nation. Just a mother. A farmer. A woman of the hills. And when people ask what became of Amanda Owen after the show, the truth is both simpler and richer than any script could capture. She lived. Quietly. Bravely. Deeply. And the Dales, faithful as ever, welcomed her back with open arms. The Dales remember. Not in the way cities do, with plaques and ceremonies and endless digital archives, but in the way the land holds onto footprints, and the wind recalls the voices of those who walked before. Amanda's legacy, though no longer broadcast, began to take root in deeper soil. It wasn't about ratings anymore. It was about ripples. A neighbor once said, "You know Amanda's truly back when you hear her laugh echoing across 3 fields and a valley." It was the kind of laugh that once had to be cued, timed, cut between commercial breaks. But now, it returned raw and unrushed. Across the country, fans who once followed her show began to ask different questions. Where did she go? Is she okay? Does she miss us? And though Amanda rarely answered, her silence did something remarkable. It gave permission. Permission to stop performing. To breathe. To fall apart and rebuild.
Letters began to arrive at the farm. Not fan mail, but confessions. Women wrote of their own breaking points. Their own marriages. Their own public smiles hiding private storms. Young mothers thanked her for showing both strength and surrender. One letter, written in delicate handwriting, simply read, "I saw you walk away, so I finally knew I could too." She kept that letter in her coat pocket, folded between old receipts and baling twine. It was worn soft by weather and memory. She never replied, but she never threw it away. At local markets, people stopped asking for selfies. They handed her fresh pies instead, offered her spare fencing wire, spoke gently, like they were speaking to someone who'd just come home from war. Because in many ways she had. Amanda hadn't just survived media scrutiny. She'd survived a more dangerous enemy. The slow erasure of self beneath public adoration. And that made her more than a survivor. It made her a rebel. She taught her children this quiet rebellion. Not with speeches, but with example. She told them it was okay not to be liked. Okay to change your mind. Okay to take the long way home. When her youngest asked if the cameras would ever come back, Amanda replied, "Only if the sheep start acting." She found joy in rebuilding with no audience. She rethreaded old clothes, mended relationships one awkward cup of tea at a time, let her hands grow calloused again. Some nights, the farm felt lonelier than it used to, but also felt honest. And when you've lived years under fluorescent lights and endless scrutiny, there is no greater gift than honesty, even if it's uncomfortable. They called her the Yorkshire shepherdess, the nation's farmer, the face of Ravenseat. But in the end, Amanda Owen didn't want to be a face anymore. She wanted to be a person, and she became one, not because of a headline, not because of a new contract, but because she dared to disappear from view and found herself waiting on the other side.
In a world that never stopped scrolling, Amanda Owen pressed pause. No dramatic farewell post. No press tour. No publicist-crafted closure. Just one last look across the hills, one last deep breath in the cool Ravenseat air. And then she shut the gate. That simple act, closing a wooden gate, like she'd done 1,000 times before, meant something different this time. It was symbolic, private, unfilmed. A farewell not to the land, but to the part of her life where she was a story told by others. The sun was setting. The sheep were quiet. And Amanda, the Yorkshire shepherdess, mother of 9, media figure, author, icon, was home. Not in a house, but in herself. People kept asking, would she ever return to TV? Her answer never changed. Not all stories need a camera. Because some truths are too sacred to be sold. Some healing too slow to be scripted. Some lives, better lived off-screen. In her silence, Amanda taught us more than years of episodes ever could. That strength isn't loud. That survival isn't always pretty. That joy can exist outside validation. She had been on magazine covers, talk shows, bestsellers lists. But her favorite place? A quiet field. A good dog. A kettle just beginning to boil. She had learned, after everything, to want less and feel more. To walk her land not as a spectacle, but as its steward. And as for Ravenseat, it still stands. Weathered, wild, wiser, like Amanda.
People kept asking, would she ever return to TV? Her answer never changed. Not all stories need a camera. Because some truths are too sacred to be sold. Some healing too slow to be scripted. Some lives better lived off-screen. In her silence, Amanda taught us more than years of episodes ever could. That strength isn't loud. That survival isn't always pretty. That joy can exist outside validation. She had been on magazine covers, talk shows, bestsellers lists. But her favorite place? A quiet field, a good dog, a kettle just beginning to boil. She had learned, after everything, to want less and feel more. To walk her land not as a spectacle, but as its steward. And as for Ravenseat, it still stands, weathered, wild, wiser, like Amanda. So if you've ever stood at a crossroads, if you've ever smiled through heartbreak, if you've ever turned off the noise to hear your own voice again, then Amanda Owen's story is also yours. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from the spotlight and step into our truth. Like this video if you believe in reclaiming your own narrative.